Let's talk about sweat. Guys, we have a guest. And you know me, how I do this? I have to give you a glimpse, a pre intro of our guest and how we linked up, how we connected. Our guest today, very interesting person. We connected via Instagram. Looks like all, or rather, it seems like all my guests we just connect on Instagram. I'm not complaining. Actually, it's a blessing to me. Our guest here she's an activist. She advocates for hyperhidrosis. I have gone through her Instagram page, and guys, I'm not going to say much. She's here. She's going to introduce herself and she's going to explain more. You're going to get to know her today. So, without further ado, the camera is yours.
Jambo Jingalango ni Kutoka, California. My name is Kristen. I started the blog How to Hyperhidrosis earlier this year in April. The blog talks about my experience with hyperhidrosis, and ultimately I wanted to provide a resource that I didn't have when I was growing up. So I share my experience with treatments, and most importantly, I share the psychological impact I feel like it's had living with hyperhidrosis.
So, who's Kristen Hernandez?
I think a lot of people would describe me as outgoing, independent, full of energy. I think I'm curious and creative, and I'm also outspoken, which is why I think advocacy comes naturally to me.
When did you realize that you suffer or rather struggle with excessive sweating? At what age? And what type of hyperhidrosis do you suffer from?
So my family has always told me a story that I would always carry a purse around me. It wouldn't leave my side. And when they would ask me what was inside my purse, it would just be filled to the brim with tissue. And so when I heard that as an adult, I was like, I must have had hyperhidrosis then, because I would always fill my backpack and my purse with tissues or little towels. I have a towel with me right now. And I would always carry that around. So with that story and thinking about other experiences in school, I'm pretty sure I had it as early as 4 years old. And from that, I think I have primary hyperhidrosis. I sweat from my face, my underarms, my torso, my groin, my butt, my legs, my feet, my hands, basically everywhere. So I think I had it from a very early age.
So apart from Kristen in your family, is there any other person who struggles with excessive sweating?
I don't know if my family members have been diagnosed with hyperhidrosis. I think I'm the more outspoken one about it. And I think if there are people in my family that have hyperhidrosis, they don't probably sweat as much as I do. But again, I think about that question, and it took me so long to talk about it that I'm not surprised that I don't know if any of my other family members have it, because who's, willing to say, yeah, I sweat from my growing, not a lot of people want to talk about this. So I don't really know if other people in my family have hyperhidrosis, but since starting the blog, so many more family members are more comfortable talking about their sweat in general with me, because I've made, we're just more comfortable talking about it. There's like that open discussion now about it.
We all have different experiences when it comes to hyperhidrosis or any other form of sweat-related issues. My experiences are totally different from yours. Mm-hmm. So describe to us your experiences living with this condition from your early childhood up to where you are right now. How has it been?
Yeah, so I started therapy probably 4 years ago, and I would always describe hyperhidrosis like this physical being. So I always felt like it was this wall that I was continuously pushing, but that would never give. And at a very young age, knowing that, you know, something was wrong. I knew something was wrong. I didn't know what it was. And not being able to understand that, process that, or even express that, I think that's why my experience with hyperhidrosis has been so challenging. I think I lived majority of my life in denial. Like, I knew that this wall was there. I knew hyperhidrosis was there, but I constantly was convincing myself that I was overreacting, or maybe I was being too sensitive. And I never felt like I fit in. I didn't feel girly enough because I didn't want to wear sandals and a dress. And I remember even telling my mom, like, I can't wear it. I can't wear it. Like, why don't you understand that I can't wear this? And I think it's just hard to talk about when you're that young, and especially if you don't understand what's going on with your body. When I was growing up, the doctors didn't even know. So how was I supposed to ask, you know, for help or what I needed if no one else around me even knew what was going on? And growing up, I was always just observing other people, seeing how they, you know, the mannerisms they used, because I didn't know how to live my life with hyperhidrosis. So I wanted to emulate what I thought was normal. I wanted to look normal. I didn't want to draw attention to me. So I was constantly trying to like look at other people because I thought they were normal, and just try to, you know, practice looking like them or being like them so that it wouldn't draw attention to me. But even growing up, like, I remember crying myself to sleep a lot of nights because that was the only time where I felt safe, that I can just like let all my frustration and my angst out. And because I'm considered like an outgoing and energetic person, I think it was harder for me to show that side of me, or for people to even ask or question it, because I never looked like anything was wrong with me. I hid it very well.
We all do. We are very
Yeah.
good at camouflaging our sweat. I mean, personally,
Yeah.
I've done it for a very
Yeah.
long period of time. During that period, during that time, did you receive any support?
I received the support that I allowed. So what I mean by that is it was very obvious that my parents knew that I excessively sweat. I would talk about it. So in that respect, they were super supportive. They would try to find doctors and treatments to try to help me. I even went to go visit a naturalist doctor in Mexico City. I have family in Mexico City. I went to go visit their naturalist doctor to try to find treatment. I don't even remember the name of it, but whatever I used, it worked for a short period of time. So in that respect, I always had that support. But it kind of goes back to me not being able to express how I was feeling. And so with that, I didn't get the emotional support, because a part of, for me, living with hyperhidrosis was to hide it. I didn't want people to know, but I desperately wanted someone to know without me actually having to say it. And that's difficult to get that, you know, emotional support from people if I can't tell them that I need it. So over the years, you know, specifically if I think about just certain family events, you know, I was still hiding. I feel very comfortable around my family. But again, if I can't express the emotional support that I need, how do I expect to get it? And honestly, it wasn't until about maybe 3 years ago where I finally was like sitting down at my family's house, and I just broke down and I just started crying, and I just started explaining to them how much I've been struggling. And they were shocked, because on the outside, you know, I come off very happy. I come off very independent. They had no idea that I was struggling the way that I was. And, you know, from that point forward, I feel like we opened that dialogue and that discussion. And now I feel like, because I've allowed it to happen, because I've opened up about how I feel, there's more of that support.
From camouflaging our sweat to, you know, hiding it from other people.
Mm-hmm.
we people living with hyperhidrosis, we go through a lot that our counterparts don't understand, and
Right.
it's hard for them to even understand. Even if you try to explain to them, they'll try to a certain point. uh,
Right.
we have emotional issues associated with hyperhidrosis. What are some
Yes.
of those emotional issues have you faced? Before you answer,
Mm-hmm.
I went through your Instagram page and there is a video of you in black and white where
Mm-hmm.
you're talking about some of these emotional issues. It's a short video, but the message itself, it's massive. So what are some of those emotional issues that you faced, and how did you manage them? And what solutions, what solutions did you come up with to quote unquote try to deal with them and not allowing them to take over your life, or giving it power? How did you do it?
Right. So I think as a kid, for the most part, I there's a certain age where you're able to continue living under the mask that nobody really cares. There's a certain age, I think it was probably like maybe fourth grade, where my friends knew that my hands sweated. I would just pull my sleeves over, my hands if I needed to hold hands with anybody, and it was fine. And then puberty hits, and your emotions are going all over the place. I was super insecure. You're constantly comparing yourself to other people already. On top of that, I'm sweating excessively. So trying to fit in again is becoming an issue because I don't know where I fit in. I can't wear the cool clothes that everybody else is wearing because it just doesn't make me feel comfortable. And I really, like, at that point, I think I decided, I need to feel comfortable versus fashionable because, for my sanity alone and how to manage hyperhidrosis, I just needed to get through the day without like maybe having a panic attack about my sweat. And for me, my anxiety manifested maybe not in the way many people have anxiety. I internalized a lot. So it would be in my head where I'd go through all these scenarios and I'd freak out in my head. And then ultimately I would decide, like, am I going to leave class or am I not going to leave class? So for example, like in college, that was a hard transition for me with hyperhidrosis because now, I went to a small high school and I'm in college in these lecture halls with hundreds of people in a classroom, and your desks are this close together, and somehow I'm supposed to hide. You can't really hide when everyone's like right next to you. And so I would always pick like the end seat, either at the very back or somewhere near the aisle so that I can exit right away. Because, again, these chairs are so close to each other. If I had to get up and go to the bathroom, like my back's sweating, I'm over here putting my back, my butt, my sweaty butt everywhere, like that's something I wanted to avoid at all costs. So I would always sit on like the aisle seat and do that to escape, essentially. And sometimes it wasn't that I had to go to the bathroom. I was just so overwhelmed with trying to like manage my sweat, and then I'm supposed to focus in class and I can't. So I would leave, and sometimes I would never come back to class. So I would just sit in the bathroom, try to dry myself and try to talk to myself and tell myself, you could go back to class. But ultimately, like, I couldn't. I was just like so overwhelmed or overstimulated, essentially, that, I would just go home. And so anxiety has been a big part of me. And I've hid my anxiety very, very well. A lot of people don't know that I have anxiety. I hate going to the store by myself. I hate doing a lot of things by myself because it gives me a lot of time to think in my head and build up that anxiety in my head. So I like to do things with other people because I can get distracted, or I'm distracted by other people in general, when I'm out and about. But in school specifically, I didn't participate. I remember as a kid in like the spelling bee or running for class president because the idea that I was going to be center stage, there's no way. Why would I expose myself for people to see my sweat? if I didn't have to. And to speak to, to some of those videos I posted, in college, I had a very difficult time. Like, I look back at college, and although possibly academically it was a great experience, psychologically, like, I used to drink a lot just to claim to function normal in social settings, because if I didn't, I would probably never go out, essentially. So I would drink to socialize, and I would like think in my head, well, if anyone did question my sweating, then I could just say, oh, it must be the alcohol, because sometimes people get hot and sweaty when they're drinking. So I would just blame that. And so even now as an adult, I'm more aware of doing certain activities, specifically drinking, with the intention of like, don't drink when you're sad. Don't drink just because you're anxious, drink, for whatever happy reasons or social reasons. But I definitely use that to mask my anxiety a lot of times. And, in terms of as an adult, jobs, I mean, we probably all experience this, but there's a lot of jobs I just didn't take because I'd look at the description and I was like, I probably can't do that with my sweatiness. How would I do that? I don't know how to do that with my sweatiness. So I just wouldn't do it at all. Yeah.
Your hyperhidrosis, your excessive sweating, has it had an effect in your relationships?
Yes. So even growing up, I remember having a boyfriend that wanted to hold my hand. And right when he did it, I was like, ah! And he thought that I didn't like him. And I did. I was just terrified of him seeing it, let alone touching it, that I like, why would you want to touch my hand? Like, how dare you do that? But yeah, in my relationships, it's always been like an insecurity of mine to like be vulnerable and share that side of me. And currently, I've been in a relationship for 10 years, and even in 10 years, there's things that I struggle to like share because it's just such a vulnerable position to be in. And, from a young age, like I said, I would always kind of convince myself that I was overreacting or being too sensitive. So that is something that I've worked on. Just because you're being vulnerable and sharing your emotions doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you're insensitive, and so, yeah, there's definitely aspects of relationships where, I take a very long time to get ready because I'm always thinking about like, okay, well, where am I going to go? What is the floor going to be like? Is it going to be marble floor? If it's marble floor, maybe I shouldn't wear sandals. If it's carpet, then maybe I can wear sandals. You're thinking about all these different scenarios in your head because I'm trying to control as much as I can with my sweating by the clothes that I wear. So in that respect, in relationships, I think the hardest part is sharing that vulnerability and like, hey, sometimes I just feel really hot and sweaty and gross, and I don't want to be like touched right now. And other times, it's just, if anything, it's always been my issue and not my partner's issue. They don't care at all if I'm sweating. They just want to show affection. It's more of me, the one that's like insecure about it or uncomfortable about it. So if anything, in relationships, I've been encouraged by my partners to, show more affection or to hold hands or to do certain things, and felt more comfortable in doing so because they really don't care. They just love me and they just want to express that.
That it's awesome. It's awesome, especially when you have a supportive partner. Not everyone living with this condition is lucky enough to get a supportive partner. Most of the time, we end up having people who are more judgmental than supportive. Mm-hmm. So me hearing you talk about your significant other and how supportive he is to you, you don't even have to say a lot. Just by your explanation, I mean, it's clear that he's very supportive. And we, as Hyperhidrosis Awareness Kenya, we appreciate you for supporting Kristen. Now,
yeah.
Kristen,
Yes.
How do you manage excessive sweating? Are you into any treatment currently, or what are some of the coping mechanisms that you have employed into your day-to-day activities? Hyperhidrosis is an everyday problem. So
Yes.
how do you manage excessive sweating?
So I've tried almost everything. And I would say the most effective for me, because I sweat majority of my body, oral medication is the best for me because it hits everything almost. And in deciding what type of oral medication to take, I've tried different ones where I can't function at all. I'm either super congested, super dry mouth, or I get really dizzy. There's other medications for other people who don't respond that way, which I think is really interesting about hyperhidrosis treatment, is that I could take a medication, you could take one, and we could have completely different experiences. The one that I take right now is oxybutynin, 10 milligrams extended release, and it's an oral medication. You're supposed to take it like at night. I really like that one. That one works really well for me. But the caveat to many oral medications is that you're more susceptible to overheating. For me, I haven't taken it recently because it's been really hot here in California and I have allergies. And with allergies, I get headaches. So if I take my oxybutynin, I know my headache is going to get worse. So I've kind of avoided taking that for the time being, but I think it's the most effective treatment for me now. And when I haven't taken it, I rely a lot on my topicals. So like Carpe has been a really good product that I've used for my underarms and my hands and my feet to manage that. But again, I think that's why it's really important to emphasize the psychological impact hyperhidrosis has made, because when my other treatments don't work, me being able to manage my anxiety, to be present, and to identify those triggers or identify those moments in my life where, sometimes you're sweating so much, you're just like in this tunnel vision where I don't know about anything else going on. And I'm just, in survival mode, I guess. I just hide the sweat, just hide the sweat, just hide the sweat. And you can't really be present when people are around or in certain events because you're just focused on yourself and trying to hide your sweat. So I think that's why it's really important. There's a mixture of, obviously treatment, oral medication for me, or topicals, and then therapy and, really like talking about how it makes me feel, how to identify when maybe I'm getting too overwhelmed, how or when I'm ignoring those signs or those red flags that I know, will eventually build up to something worse. So for me, I notice that when I'm very angry or very short with people, I'm more anxious. And so I usually try to use that as an opportunity to take the time, maybe it doesn't take long, like maybe 10 minutes a day, to kind of sit there with your feelings and be like, why am I feeling this way? What is going on in my life that might be, exacerbating these emotions that I'm having right now? So a lot of self-reflection, I think, is super helpful in treatment. And a little combination of everything.
You have echoed my sentiments when it comes to managing hyperhidrosis. I always insist that it will always involve a combination of different therapies. Mm-hmm. You have your medication, your medical treatments, you have your topical treatments, but always remember to manage your anxiety, manage your triggers, because you know what triggers your sweat.
Right.
And if you don't manage the triggers, it doesn't matter what form of medication you go for, it won't work. Yeah. It won't give you the satisfactory results that you're looking for. Now,
definitely,
going back to your turning point.
Mm-hmm.
Kristen at home with the family, she breaks down and she cries. I believe that that was your turning point, and
Yes.
that's what led to your advocacy, what you're doing currently. I
Right.
don't know for how long you've been doing it, but I think you've been there for a minute, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
Besides your experiences and the things you've gone through in life with hyperhidrosis, have you met people with this condition, and did that contribute to your advocacy?
Yes. So when I started the blog, yeah, I think I had a lot of support from my family, things like that, because of that turning point you're talking about. And it kind of motivated me because I realized in the people I've met in my life, the people I've seen, on social media, that I've had like a significant amount of experience that maybe other people haven't. And the one thing that I realized with hyperhidrosis is, one, nobody talks about it. And treatment, there is treatment, but it's not as accessible to everybody as it should be. And three, there's a lot of people suffering from hyperhidrosis that have no idea what to do. And I used to be one of those people. And so throughout my life, what's interesting is I've been to college, right? And after college, I went to another school. And in those two experiences, my college roommate actually had hyperhidrosis. And it just happened to be a random conversation that we had where I discovered this. And then I met another friend of mine who also had hyperhidrosis. And that's a funny story because we were both volunteering to teach kids and, the local schools around us, like biology, things like that. And we had to get fingerprinted. So we're both there trying to get fingerprinted. And obviously I'm sweating and nervous about it. And this person was sweating as well. And I was like, no, you don't understand. Like, I sweat so much. Like, you don't even know. Like, this is really difficult for me. We kept wiping our hands. And the other person was like, no, you don't understand. I sweat a lot. This is like going to be impossible for you. And I was like, we were like competing, like, no, you don't get it. You don't get it. Like, I sweat more. And then the person was like, no, but I have hyperhidrosis. And I was like, oh, I do too. Like, I was so happy. I was like, no way. Like, what are the chances that I meet somebody who actually has hyperhidrosis? Like, it was quite amazing. So aside from like those two friends that I have that have hyperhidrosis, yeah, I mean, it's been great just being able to share those experiences and just know that, again, you're not alone. There's a lot of us out there like that.
What are some of the day-to-day challenges, the everyday challenges that you face in terms of, for instance, technology-wise, a lot of things are changing, right? So from touch
Right.
technology, biometrics, all those other stuff, driving, what are some of the daily activities that can be somehow complicated due to excessive sweating? What are some of those challenges you face?
Well, I think a few times on my blog, or on my Instagram at least, I've talked about like just getting out of bed. Like getting out of bed, I don't sleep with socks because I feel like that's like my only opportunity to air out my feet because I wear socks all day. So when I get out of bed, before I put my feet down, I have to put socks on because if I don't, then I'm literally going to pick up any ounce of dirt or dust or anything that's on the floor is just going to stick to my feet. So that alone can be stressful because it makes me feel dirty. It makes me feel gross. Like I'm clean, but I just got out of bed and now I'm putting my feet on the ground. So making sure I have socks. So just, the whole process of waking up in the morning, getting ready for school, getting ready for work, things like that. I've also expressed, even sometimes I wear contacts. Sometimes putting my contacts in my eyes can be difficult because my finger keeps slipping where I can't grip to open my eyeball to put my contacts in. And if I wear glasses, it's constantly sliding. It's sliding on my sweaty nose. I'm having to push up. And then I'm touching my lens on my glasses, which is smudging my glasses. I can't see. I mean, just little things like that that people probably don't realize, like that we deal with on a daily basis. And then, you know, driving, of course. I don't like driving with other people in the car because I'm scared, you know, of my hand slipping or something. A few years ago, I broke my wrist, my left wrist, and I had a cast on, and the doctor said I could drive, but I was so terrified of driving with one hand because I was like, what if my hand slips? I don't have another one. Like, this one was in a cast. So I just didn't drive. I didn't drive. I had people take me places, and if they couldn't, I would just stay home. But yeah, those little things are maybe something other people can't relate to. What else? I can't think of anything else. But yeah.
In California, where you reside, is there a hyperhidrosis community, and how active are you guys? What are some of the activities that you do? Do you engage? Is there a reach out program? How's the family? How's the hyperhidrosis family in California?
To be honest, I haven't quite reached out to anyone specifically in California. Like you mentioned, like the beauty of social media is that we can talk to each other from all parts of the world. And so if anything, I've had more of a community with people all across the world versus specifically in California. But yeah, you know, like the friends that I have that have hyperhidrosis live in California. I'm also now a member of We Go Health. So I have like that network of patient advocates and patient leaders where I can collaborate with. But that's, you know, I'm pretty new to advocating and, you know, setting up my blog and whatnot. So I think that's just something to look forward to in the future.
You're doing a great job. I've gone through your Instagram and advocacy. You know, this is what I say. This is what I tell people who want to advocate for hyperhidrosis. First thing they need to put in mind is hyperhidrosis is barely talked about. So those initial stages, you'll feel like you're losing your mind. You feel like you're crazy. It's like you're talking to yourself because
Right.
people cannot relate. You don't stop. You keep on pushing. Hyperhidrosis advocacy requires you to have that heart of a gladiator. You have to be a gladiator. You're in the battlefield, but now it's a different type of battle, right? So, yeah, you're doing good. Actually, you're doing well. My goal, myself personally as Martin, is to make sure that we keep on pushing this conversation. We keep shaping the conversation. For years, hyperhidrosis has been viewed as a non-issue. But what happens behind the scenes, it's grim, it's atrocious.
Right.
We have people with serious mental health issues just because of hyperhidrosis.
Yes.
But people don't understand. They think it's a non-issue. Just the mention of the word sweat, it becomes a non-issue. How? Why are you suicidal? Because of hyperhidrosis? Now, what about those cases that have happened? What about the people who have committed suicide? Because personally, I'm aware of. I know of 2 cases. But even whenever I try to talk about them, people shut me down. They're like, no, don't do that. Don't talk about that. But how is it? We cannot talk about hyperhidrosis without including all those other issues, those other effects that we want to put them on the back burner, right? So in your advocacy journey, what are some of the challenges that you have encountered in your advocacy journey?
That's a great question. I think what I've experienced personally, for example, I have a good dermatologist right now. I'm 30 years old. I found a good doctor about a year ago. I'm 30 years old and I barely found a doctor who knows enough about hyperhidrosis to help me. Throughout the years, I've always had to explain to doctors why I need treatment. I've had to justify, hey, this is actually really bad. I need help. And I've only been comfortable doing that in a setting with a doctor because that's who we go to. That's who prescribes medication. That's who essentially helps us. And even in doing so, I've had issues with insurance companies covering my medication, where 1 month it's $10, and next month, because the pharmaceuticals have a different contract, it's now $40. And for something for me that's life-changing, that by taking this one little pill can make my life so much better, 100 times better even, it's really depressing when I have to depend on that one little pill, and I have to find a doctor that knows enough to give me that one little pill that I know can be so life-changing. And I think that's what's motivating and being, in promoting it and bringing more awareness to hyperhidrosis, is that I think it can be a very manageable condition. I think with enough, discussions about it, or us sharing our experiences, I think there could be, a point in our future where it can be very manageable, and those psychological mental health issues that I have, that other people have, do not have to go through, and I think I went through that because of the lack of resources, the lack of research, and with the research itself, it has to be important enough for them to spend money to do research. And so, in that respect, I think that's why, it's been challenging, because again, you're trying to justify and trying to tell people like, hey, this is a real condition. People have very serious mental health, even debilitating conditions because of hyperhidrosis. I can't leave my house sometimes if my hyperhidrosis is not manageable. For the average person, that may not seem like a very big deal. But if I can't leave my house for more than 1 day, more than 2 days, more than 3 days, because it's just so overwhelming, I can't even control it, or psychologically I can't get out of that mindset, that is extremely debilitating. And people do not realize how, if unmanaged, which I think is a key thing, if it's unmanaged, how it can just really exacerbate and take over somebody's life. But yeah, I think what you're doing is great. I love, your interviews that you're having with so many people from different backgrounds and experiences, because I think the overall theme, though, is that by sharing our stories, more people know about it. And in doing so, we can hopefully move forward and find better ways to get treatment and to help people to prevent them, really prevent them from having like long-lasting issues in the future.
What's your take on the misconception and the misinformation of hyperhidrosis?
So one thing that I found interesting are the definitions of primary and secondary hyperhidrosis. Some people I've seen, or some doctors even, have talked about primary being, or defining it by where you sweat, and secondary, being, I guess, like primary and secondary being like where you sweat. Whereas primary, from my understanding, is whether or not, it started at a young age, and then secondary is a pre-existing condition. So the definitions of what primary and secondary are, a lot of people have confusion about that. Also, what I noticed when I went to my doctor is they define hyperhidrosis based on how debilitating it is. So severe, mild, not as mild, is dependent on how much the person perceives or deals with their hyperhidrosis as debilitating. How much does it impact your life? Yet even, when I go to the doctor and I'm defined as severe, I feel like because I've gone to therapy, I can manage it better. And it's actually not as severe as it used to be. So if they're defining hyperhidrosis based on how much it impacts your life, and not actually about where you sweat or how much you sweat, I think that's kind of confusing in terms of how to treat it. And at the same time, if you understand that it impacts people's lives, how come there aren't more resources to help people on how to manage it during their daily lives? Some of the misconceptions I've had is take your medication when it flares up. I was like, what do you mean when it flares up? Like, I'm flaring up all the time. Like, I'm always sweating. It's all the time. It's not like certain times of the day that I flare up. I'm always sweating. So also, like, the terminology and how to prescribe certain treatments, I think needs to be adjusted as well, because some days I may sweat more than other days, but ultimately my baseline is still excessive sweating. And then again, we talked about the psychological impact is just, I did a poll on my blog about this, and I asked people, do you feel like hyperhidrosis impacts you psychologically? And about 90% of people said no. Then I followed up the question with, do you have anxiety? Do you have trouble leaving your house? And again, 90% of people said yes. So people don't understand that what they're describing, the challenges that they're having with hyperhidrosis, have a psychological impact on your daily life. So I think in terms of that, like education about, just being more aware of the impact it has on somebody is super important.
The greatest stigma that I know with hyperhidrosis is the social psychological stigma. And it is our duty now as advocates to bring it out, because people need to understand, and we are the voice of the family. Not everyone is as bold as we are.
Right.
Trust me. You see, you can define the areas, your focal areas where you experience excessive sweating. You're even talking about areas that people are too embarrassed to talk about. A majority, they will only talk about their hands. Oh my God, my hands, my feet, my armpits. But they won't touch those areas where the sun don't shine, because they know they're embarrassed. They're so embarrassed.
Exactly.
They can sit there and be like, my God, I sweat in my, no, they can't.
Yeah.
They just want to bring the areas, especially the hands, the palms. These are the point of contact, right? Because this is how we shake hands. We greet each other. Until COVID-19, when we started bumping each other's feet, just use our palms. But I think it's imperative for us now to bring it out. For people to understand hyperhidrosis, we must use our voices. And even those who struggle with hyperhidrosis and they still feel ashamed. Because here's the thing. A lot of people think that if I talk about hyperhidrosis, I'm going to lose friends. People are going to have a different point of view. People are going to look at me in a certain type of way. And my reply to them has always been, listen, if your friends make fun of you, they didn't start because you came out, not coming out, you spoke and you addressed your sweat issues. No, they've been making fun of you since day one, since the day they met you. They have a nickname for you, it's just that you don't know.
Right.
If they make fun of you, then those are not really your friends, because your true friends, they know your everyday struggles, they know your challenges. They may not tell you, or rather they try to figure out a way. How am I going to talk to Kristen? How can I ask Kristen without appearing as if I'm bombarding her with questions and all that stuff, They think about you and your challenges. Okay, so how do I talk to Kristen? How can Kristen explain to me her struggles for me to understand to a certain percentage? So it's upon us to talk about hyperhidrosis. Let us approach hyperhidrosis from a holistic point of view, not just what it's on the surface. Now let us go deep. What's below the surface? There is a huge shark at the bottom. We're just looking at the tail.
Yeah.
Let us go deep. Let us go deep and address these issues, right? So what's your advice for someone living with hyperhidrosis?
Oh gosh, that's hard. I mean, One technique that I learned was, again, I'm older now, but what would you tell, especially for someone who's had it essentially their whole life, what would you tell little Kristen? What would you tell, your little version of yourself? Because I remember just feeling, you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, right? You're just so hyper focused and overwhelmed with the distress, with the managing, the micromanaging, that you can't really see anything other than that. So for me to tell someone, hey, just start talking about it. I mean, I know it's not that easy. I know it's not easy. And that's why, I highly recommend going to therapy, because it was just like this platform for me to talk about anything and everything with no judgment, no bias. And so for someone who may not have access to that, I recommend journaling, first writing it down, because if you can write it down, that's one step. You're getting it out. You have to get it out somehow. So writing it down. And then, talking about it, I used to talk to myself in the car all the time. Sometimes I still do that. I'm just talking about my day, talking about my feelings, talking about different scenarios just to myself. So I think for someone who might be suffering with hyperhidrosis in silence, suffering in silence, you have to take it day by day, and you have to try to be present. So prior to treatment, I kind of made this decision in high school that if I can't control my sweating, I can control my perspective I have about my sweating. So I saw every opportunity as an experience to just learn more about how I respond in an environment. So in high school, I'm terrified of participating in class. So I was like, okay, today I'm going to raise my hand. Every time the teacher asks for, someone to answer a question, I'm going to raise my hand. I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it. And I would do it. And I just kept doing it. And I kept doing it. And I was mortified. I mean, I was like so anxious all day. I was exhausted. But the more I did it, the more I felt comfortable doing it. And then, the next step was like, okay, public speaking. Okay, so every time there was an opportunity for me to publicly speak, I was just going to do it. So I did it. And the more that I just put myself out there and try to do things, I think it builds just that sense of confidence. So for someone who may not want to take those big of risks, I think it's important to do a little bit every day. So for me, maybe it's wearing a colored shirt. Maybe it's wearing a colored shirt that day and just wearing it, and just, there comes a point where you either care too much about sweating to where it impacts every day of your life. And we can't live that way. We just can't. Yes, it does impact every part of my life, but I cannot spend all my energy focused on that, because then I'm not living. We're not living anymore, And so I like to wear color. And you know what? My armpits are sweating really bad right now. I don't know if you can see it, but they are. Probably the floral is covering it up. But that's who I am. That is my personality. And it took a very long time for me to identify, who is Kristen without hyperhidrosis? Who am I? I don't know. Am I who I am because of hyperhidrosis? Yeah, there's probably certain parts of me that is. But I have my own personality regardless of hyperhidrosis. I feel like the negative effects of hyperhidrosis have silenced me maybe a little bit more. But I'm still, the girl in Christmas and my family where I'm dancing to Christmas carols. I'm still that outgoing person that people remember. That's who I am. And so trying to remember who you are, trying to express your personality, and again, just doing it day by day, doing a little bit of it day by day until you feel more comfortable, I think is what's important.
I agree with you. So when it comes to speaking out about hyperhidrosis, speaking out about hyperhidrosis, If you may not be vocal about it, write it down. There are always
Yes.
steps to speaking out. Write down.
Mhm.
You can do some audio recordings just by yourself. Have
Right.
like a library which you can always refer, go back and play and listen to yourself. You can talk about everything just alone. Like you said, you'll talk to yourself while driving.
Right.
I encourage people to do the same.
Mhm.
You know yourself better than anyone else.
Right.
You know what affects you, what affects your hyperhidrosis, everything. You can spend about an hour with a doctor, but if you yourself you don't know your truth, your doctor is not going to tell you your truth. Your doctor will
Right.
tell you his or her side of the truth. So the
Mhm.
number one rule in therapy is telling the truth. You have to be honest with yourself. And that will mean you
Mhm.
accept yourself, accept that I have this condition. Number two is do not give that, do not give much power to hyperhidrosis or any other sweat related issues. The
Mhm.
more you give it power, the more you quit on you. You quit on yourself. Do you know how
Yeah.
many people have shelved their dreams, their goals, so many things? The hyperhidrosis family, we have talents, we have actors, actresses, business personalities. All these have never been actualized. Why? Because they felt like they're not good enough. And that's why in our advocacy program, we need to make sure that the hyperhidrosis family, because I don't do groups. That this is just me. I don't do groups. I do family.
Right.
Because as a family unit, you agree to disagree, but you end up helping each other. You form a bridge so that those who come after us can cross to the other side, right? So
Yeah.
I'm encouraging each and every person out there living with hyperhidrosis or any other sweat related issues. Do not isolate yourself. You're not alone. Kristen is right here. Of course, she's in California. You have Martin
Well,
right here in Nairobi, Kenya. And we have so many people. Yesterday, I had a very wonderful, amazing conversation with Dan from RA Fisher. Um, I did one with Sweaty Jen. I mean, there are so many people I'm reaching out to. And one of the reasons why I decided to do this, I want to bring in new faces. I want you to listen to Kristen when she talks about her challenges, because some of the things she is going through, there is someone right here in Kenya facing the same. Meaning that however much far we are apart from each other, from another side of the globe, we share the same struggles, hyperhidrosis. The difference is how we manage our sweat. Kristen, what's your last word? Your last word. What would you want to tell us?
Hmm. My last word, I have this on my blog, but every experience is a learning experience. I truly believe every experience is a learning experience, whether I realize it now or 10 years from now. It's an opportunity for, whether it's good or bad, it's a learning experience. It's an opportunity for you to look back and see what could I have done differently to make that experience, different, if that's what you want. Um, and to listen to your body, listen to your body, listen to your mind, and just focus on, you know, being the better version of you, and how in doing so, how that works for you, because what works for me may not work for you. That's true. Um, and yeah, I mean, I just want to thank you, Martin, for inviting me here. It's been really fun. And I'm so glad I met a new hyperhidrosis friend. But yeah, I think your work is really great. I think what you're talking about in, creating this bridge so that people that come after us, have an easier path than maybe we did is super powerful. I think it's great.
Thank you very much. Truly appreciate. Thank you for the kind words and the compliments. And those compliments, also the hyperhidrosis family in Kenya have already accepted. They are going to watch this video and they are going to be, for lack of a better word, watu wataenjoy, they'll be over the roof. Mbogi ishaamua tunaenda na hiyo rieng, au sio? So Kristen,
Yes.
Where can we find you?
You can find me on Instagram, howtohyperhidrosis, on Facebook, howtohyperhidrosis, and I also have my blog, which is www.howtohyperhidrosis.com. My blog has, more content on my experiences with certain treatment, and I also catalog maybe more personal experiences dealing with hyperhidrosis, whereas my Facebook and Instagram are more the day-to-day, just me being me with my sweaty self.
Is there anything you may want to add?
Is there what? Sorry, you cut out.
Is there anything you may want to add? Maybe there's a point you wanted to articulate, you wanted to say something, and then is there anything you may want to say? Anything you may want to add?
I'm not sure what you mean. The hawk?
Mm-hmm.
I just want to thank, I don't know the actual acronym, HAK, right? HAK.
HAK, yes. Hyperhidrosis Awareness Kenya.
Yes, I want to thank HAK, Hyperhidrosis Awareness in Kenya, as well for bringing us together today and sharing our experiences and our insight to hopefully help other people out there that are listening.
I will leave you guys with this word. To break the stigma, you must educate those around you. I want you to carry that with you in all your advocacy activities. To break the stigma, you must educate. Thank you very much, Kristen.
Thank
we
you,
really appreciate you. This has been a very interesting conversation. This is what I call the SWEATUATIONSHIP. It's a relationship that is one of a kind, where we just chill, we talk about our experiences, we talk about treatment, we talk about mental health issues. And one thing you'll notice with these conversations, we don't just talk about the challenges, the effects, we also talk about solutions. And that's why I'm bringing these guys on board. Why? Because their stories have a flow. Their stories are not disconnected. They will tell you the challenges, the things they have gone through, and they'll give you the solutions on how they are managing hyperhidrosis in their daily lives. Guys, the number one rule in therapy, honesty, the truth. Be honest with yourself. Accept yourself. The rest will follow suit. We are one. We are a hyperhidrosis family. Until then, Kristen, have an amazing day. I know it's 12 or 1 in the afternoon.
Like 1 o'clock over here, yeah.
My goodness, it's
Is
around.
it time for bed for you?
It's 11 o'clock. But anyway, I've enjoyed this conversation, and be sure we are going to do another video.
Yes, that would be great.
We can think of a topic that we can talk about, and we can invite other people in. Anyone you know, we can invite them in, and let's keep this this conversation has to flow. Let us keep the wheels flowing. So until then, guys, remember one thing: sweat with a purpose. Hyperhidrosis Awareness Kenya, our mission is to restore hope and confidence. Have an amazing day. Kristen?
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.